Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We're going to jump right into it, talking Michigan football today. Wednesday, July the 17th. So in the back half of July, for a lot of people, that's music to their ears because we're getting that much closer to the start of the college football season. This is a college football pod, so a lot of people are shaking their head like, yeah, heck yeah. We're getting close to the end of the month. That means Michigan will be reporting to camp. And there's Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine, with us. Scar, good to see you. What's going on?
Yeah, you're right, Danny. I just saw Sharon Moore announce, I think it's July 31st. So 2 weeks from today, they will be in camp. That's like 4 weeks before the first game. When I played, it was 3 weeks. So 4 weeks now, they bring these kids in. That's a whole nother argument. It kind of bugs me that they're there for 4 weeks. But, you got to get your mind mentally right. These guys are another 2 weeks down and counting. So it's a hell of a grind. August, September, October, November, December, hopefully deep into January. That's a long deal. You got to get your mind mentally right for. But July 31st, baby, we start the run for 4 in a row, Big Ten championships.
Yeah, and back-to-back national championships. You see at fall camp, they're on a rundown. We'll get to recruiting. Scar's got some wisdom. And then we got a bunch of different things just regarding Michigan and overall just what's going on in college football. A lot of different things happening now. You're wanting content. There's a lot of it out there. Let's go to recruiting. Michigan had a big week, got a couple commitments, a wide receiver over the weekend. They're up to 16. That has them at number 13 overall in the team rankings. Anything jumping out there to you, Scar, that Michigan's moving on up in the recruiting rankings? You like the players that they're getting?
Yeah, getting that kid out of Louisiana is huge, man. We stole him from LSU. Georgia wanted him. That's where you want your program, man. You want to beat Texas and Alabama and Georgia and Notre Dame. You want to beat those guys for kids. We don't want to beat Rutgers for guys. In Maryland, we want to beat who's Georgia's going after, who's Notre Dame's going after. And Babaloa still hasn't made a decision. He was supposed to make a pick here, but he's
up there. I've got him on a list of recruiting targets. I think Michigan's still looking pretty good. You want Michigan to beat Texas and USC. They're in the mix with a wide receiver from Texas and Marsh. This NOB, the linebacker down in Florida. You want them to beat Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, and Florida? That would be a real coup. And then there's two Sanders, Jaden Sanders, Michigan and Oklahoma State. And that seems like an easy one to me. And then DJ Sanders is from Texas. He's a defensive tackle. And that's going to be tough to pull him. But Michigan's trying to get him, I think they do have him coming up to their big barbecue weekend. So get some barbecue and say, hey, we got barbecue up here too, Mr. Sanders. Let's go. So it can work out, right?
Yeah, closing deals. It's this time of year. It's so much better for these kids now. When I think about it, that these decisions are made in the summer. They're getting offered early. Back in my day, it was you had to play your senior year. They wanted to get all that film on you and make a decision. Now these kids get it done and over. They can clear their mind and get ready for their high school season and focus on their team. Whereas, they're not taking visits during the season and all that mess. And so it's so much better for these kids. But yeah, Denny, getting that kid from LSU, and we're slowly building a class that could end up in the top 5.
Yeah, for the top guys like you, it's nice, Scar. You can get it out of the way because, teams are rolling out the red carpet. There's still a lot of others that are biding their time and they have to wait. They're hoping for an offer. Or they're trying to make a move and show some coaches some things on film in their senior year so they can still end up getting in there. Then, there comes the flips and everything else. It's going to happen.
Danny, that's what's going on with a lot of late offer guys that are like that, that Northwestern Michigan or Indiana, Michigan type of guy. Michigan, how long are they going to wait? And then they got to decide, do I bring in is bringing in a transfer like Josiah Stewart better than, getting this high school kid. So there's a lot of those late offer guys, and then everything trickles down. Then everybody ends up waiting. Because I talk to high school guys, and they're like, man, we got to, offers ain't coming until late for some of these MAC guys and these Division II guys. They're all waiting till the last minute. It all gets pushed down.
Mark was reading the title of the podcast, Could Michigan Finish in the Top 5? And Mark says, to be top 5, it'll take 2, maybe 3 big flips. Candidate players, schools that might be possible. He's asking for some of those flips. Yeah, I don't have any flips for you sitting here ready for you, Mark. I'm sorry about that, but I do agree that if it's Michigan to move all the way up into the top 5, it'll be. I also think that they would have to. Who knows how their game plan might change. You could tell that they've got a straight, steady game plan where, sure, the big top dogs, the 5 stars, the guys that are commanding 6 figures, maybe 7 figures, Michigan's in on them, but they're just not going to Michigan. But then there's the next cut, and Michigan's in a groove, and they're really, collecting a lot of those players. After this month, and the well kind of runs dry there. What other quiver do they got there that they're going to fire out of their quail? What other plan do they have to round out the class? Is it coming in with some more money? Is it and then trying to flip some players that way? Of course, you got to stay with the ones that you have. All that kind of stuff. Mark just says he'd say great looking juniors remain great absent. Catastrophe, but some might blossom.
Denny, you got these 4 and 5 star kids that everybody's got. Some of these guys got committed already. Well, guess what? Some of them might not play all that well in their senior year, and then the phones are going to go dead for some of those guys. Wait a minute. I got my offer to Ohio State. You watch. Some of those guys are going to come down. Okay, and then you got other guys that were like, we're not sure about, and their stock is going to go up because they're going to have great senior years, and Michigan will be right there with scholarships ready and available. So there's just 2 sides to that deal with some of these early offers. And, you just don't know how well they're going to play, and some of those rankings are going to modify, and then it doesn't happen until after the season, December. So let's see how the season goes. Kids are going to change their mind. Some of that NIL money is going to get lowered if the kid doesn't play well. You watch, I'm sure that stuff is happening. Other guys are going to have NIL money go up based on how well they play. So a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
You got to go through the season. You got December. So, but we're trickling away. We're moving. We're working at our pace, man.
That's a good point. What kind of season you put together? You got coaches at big time schools like Michigan, like Alabama, Caleb DeBoer, Sharon Moore. What kind of seasons do they continue to look like they're going to be a player in the college football playoff? Well, players are going to look at that, the style of play and all those things. That's a good point. You want to know what the pros think? Well, they're working for you over at the Maize and Blue Review. Join up. You want to know the latest in recruiting, the transfer portal, the schedule, the 2 deep, all of the features, the banter on the Den. Well, that's what you get, the Maize and Blue Review. Go today to sign up by going to michigan.rivals.com, and we will see you over there. Scar, I was looking on the Maize and Blue Review just before we came on here, and there were some quotes. Mason Graham and a bunch of Michigan players were at an event. Alex Orji, I got a quote I wanted to read to you. I saw Will Johnson and others, but here's some of the things that Mason Graham had to say. See if anything jumps out. I've got 3 things. Graham says, some people think with all the accolades and achievements, you just fall off. Coach Moore coming in, we have the same mindset. Get back to where we were at. Do all the same things.
I love it, man. I love it. We're not going to fall off. What everyone is saying, it's about the guys at Schembechler Hall. He understands it, and his coaches are, whoever these pundits are, falling off. Clowns outside. That's the first thing you want to do. You get in a submarine. Jim used to call it the submarine. Sharon's got the mentality of the submarine, and he's using the old Woody Hayes line, man. People start telling you how good you are, you punch them in the face, right? It sounds like that's what Mason and Sharon Moore are hearing. We ain't missing, we're grinding, man. We're same goals, same fire, same passion, and coming together, man. So it's a great statement from him. So I'm sure that mindset is strong down at Schembechler Hall.
Two more from Mason Graham. I do have if I have a top 5 list of triggering words from Scar, one of them is pundits. He loved, I start talking about pundits. He loves, that'll rile him up. More from Graham, who says the team has heard rivals and pundits talk about Michigan falling off following the offseason of change and departures. Graham says, quote, "We're not going to fall off," what everyone is saying. It's about the guys at Schembechler Hall coming together. He says there's the one about they're not going to fall off. And there it is. Do I have one more? No, there it is. That's it. They're not falling off. And it's about the guys that are down at the practice facility and coming together.
Yeah, you just, you block out all the ignorance, man. People telling you how great you are, how bad you are, whatever. I mean, you just focus on what you can control there, and that's the mindset of. There's so much competition for these guys to get on the field. That's going to be irrelevant. We just got to play, and we got to get better. Got to get have a great camp. Try to come out healthy, and get ready for Fresno, man.
Yesterday we had a pundit on, Phil Steele, college football preview. He's been doing it for a long time. Anything jump out that Steele had to say about Michigan?
Danny, I tell you what, I've listened to Phil Steele for a long time. I used to pay for his service because I like to play a little action every now and then. If I give Phil credit, man, he is piped in. You ask him about the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he'll tell you about all the players. He'll know the coaches. He knows his stuff. He does his research on a whole lot of football teams. I listened to him yesterday. I listened to you talk to him the other day, but I respect Phil in a lot of ways because I think he really gets it in some ways. Other ways, I don't agree with some of the things he thinks are important, like the record. I'll give you one example. Phil thinks if you're placing action, the record against a certain opponent over the last 10, 20 years matters. Like, I think it's irrelevant with different coaching staffs. You follow me? That's one of the things.
I agree with you on that. There's a lot of, if you're talking gamblers like the history and
I don't give a damn about any of that. If it's a different coaching staff, it's irrelevant, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. But Scar, if I could just jump in there, my dad, he loved talking about NFL. I'd say, oh man, I really liked the Lions against the Vikings, and he's like, you'd never bet a home team that's or you never bet a road team getting points in the division or something. And I mean, he was in on all those kind of things, but those things really shouldn't matter. It should be about the two teams that are out there. You can look at a little bit of the recent history, but he just had a lot of, like Phil Steele. He's like, you're not betting a divisional foe, given a field goal on the road or something like that. He just wouldn't do it, So
anyway, here's a couple of things I thought he said that I would want to take issue with. He referred to Tuttle as a game manager. Again, that term to me, I think the greatest quarterback out of Michigan and won a bunch of Super Bowls was a game manager. Tom Brady was an accurate passer, got you in the right play, secured the football. And if we get game manager, you know what I think of Tuttle? I think Tuttle is Cade McNamara with feet. That's what I think we're going to get from Tuttle. Cade McNamara with feet, and if Alex Orji, we're all if we see the ability to throw the ball consistently, we're going to be a tough team. I don't know who's going to be our starting quarterback. I don't.
I think you're underselling McNamara and overselling Tuttle. I mean, Tuttle's played. He's had 3 starts over the 6 years, but it's not like he was really great in any of those. He won a game at Wisconsin, and you want to go back and tell me that it was really big there. A game manager, certainly Tom Brady was. That was part of it. Tom Brady was also a really clutch player that in the fourth quarter was a playmaker. I mean, you can't say those kind of things about Tuttle, but I'll go back to Cade McNamara. You go back to that game at Rutgers when he came in and he had 5 touchdowns and he accounted for him. He was a playmaker. He was throwing the ball all over the place, and he really showed Michigan what he could do there. And then he went on and won a Big Ten championship, and he was a little bit, I think, a little bit more of a game manager, but it wasn't something that you wanted to go in and say, let's put the game on Cade McNamara's shoulders. Michigan wasn't doing that, and I don't think they want to do that with Tuttle. So I think, a game manager, it's not I wouldn't want that kind of term, that kind of label on me, because what you're saying is that, this guy's not a great quarterback. You're saying that
he can't run? What's it mean? He can't run? The term just pisses me off, Danny.
Yeah, I get that. It's not a nice term that you want. It puts you in a box. That's for sure.
I'm not going to compare this guy to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was, he didn't have feet. Okay. He just was accurate, smart. I think Tuttle's going to give us that. And if you're going to compare, whatever the hell he did playing with Indiana, no defense, no run game, compared to being quarterback for Michigan, he's going to get a hell of a lot more help playing for Michigan. Okay.
He was a turnover machine 2 years ago
again, Danny, playing from behind with Indiana, no run game, totally different deal, man. Totally different deal. So playing quarterback with that Michigan offense and that Michigan defense, hand the ball off, it's going to be different. Okay, Phil talked about our schedule. He didn't like playing Texas so early. Listen, I think it's a great situation because I think our schedule is really, really good. We have a serious challenge with Fresno. They are not a joke. They will score points. That game is home. It gets us ready. The biggest improvement, and Bo used to talk about it all the time, and I believe it as a player and a coach, the biggest improvement for your team is from game 1 to game 2. That's where you're going to see your biggest improvement. All these guys they haven't played at Michigan Stadium or started a football game, they're going to start. They're going to play a lot of reps. And in that Fresno game, in game 2, it'll be a whole different deal for them. They'll be more comfortable. So I like it the way it is. I like it. Phil was kind of saying it wasn't good. I think it gives us a good position to go in and play Texas and beat Texas.
Yeah, well, I love games like Texas and a non-conference slate, so you can sign me up for those all the time. But I would much rather have with a quarterback that has not played, or it certainly hasn't played in big games for Michigan. I wouldn't mind playing the schedule from the last 2 years, those real walkover games that, were super easy. I know this. I was just thinking about last year. We talk about last year. We'll always talk about last year. Last year was great and everything. They were winning games, but last year really didn't start until the middle of November when they went to Penn State. And then the intensity. I mean, the intensity ratcheted up in the Penn State game about 100-fold. It continued on through Maryland, obviously Ohio State, a Big Ten championship game. The Rose Bowl was, the Xfinity, whatever it was. But most of the other games, I mean, it was, for an undefeated team in a championship, it was a real yawner, until November 11th. Now, the counter to that would be people like, oh, you don't like winning ball games. People just like winning ball games. I get that part. I get that part of the argument.
No, but I said it last year that with the team we had last year, that's the team you want to open the season up.
Yeah.
Going to Oklahoma or going to Texas when you got your defense back, your quarterback back. I get all that, And he talked about Sharon Moore not wanting to talk to him. I think some of that might have to do with the whole concept of Phil's involved with the gambling site. It is a big time gambling site, and maybe Sharon just doesn't want to deal with it.
Well, that's a good point, but I would say my guess is that Michigan's not really cooperative with outside media to begin with. That would be my guess. They never have been. They're not even cooperative with hometown media. So unless you're in with them, like you have their rights, their radio rights, their TV rights, well, then they have to. But if they didn't have to, I don't think they would talk to anybody. But that's all right. Hey, it's working for them. It's what it's always been. You can get it doesn't give you the greatest access as a fan because you're sitting out here and you're like, what? But hey, it spawns off a big time cottage industry like the Maize and Blue Review, who will be on the streets working hard to find out everything they can about what's going on behind closed doors. So
one last thing. Phil talked about us not having a lot of depth. I'm not so sure that's true either because, Denny, we're going to find out about our depth. We're going to find out about Eno Eto and a whole bunch of them young defensive linemen, they might be flat out outstanding. They might challenge Kenny Grant for reps. Who knows? Because a lot, we saw him in the spring. So I don't know that I agree with the statement about depth at a lot of these positions. We're going to find out in the Fresno game when we start making those rotations and we see these backups going in. I think we're going to walk away from that game feeling like we got 50 guys that can play. 20 bunch on defense, backups on defense, and backups on offense. That's what I think we're going to come out of that thing thinking.
Michigan's got a really good defense, so that's a great place to start when you're a Michigan fan. When I look at the rest of it, they got a big question mark at quarterback. I know Phil said it. I was saying it since, when you got to replace the entire offensive line, that's going to be a concern to me. It takes time to gel. They do have Texas week 2. I know Texas has to replace a lot too, but when you're talking about your entire offensive line, that's a pretty big deal to me. And then, Turner came in. I thought Turner was a big question mark last year, but he came in because Moody was so great. I mean, he was some money. That's how he got his nickname. And then Turner was even better. Maybe this kid, Zavada from Arkansas State, but it's a little bit different kicking in Ann Arbor than it is in Jonesboro. I would put those as the 3 big, I'm going to say they're definitely questions, but I know you're not as worried about them. So that's good. I'm glad.
Well, hey, let's get quarterback answered, and that's about that's really when we walk away from that first game and we have couple guys that can play, we feel good with. We're gonna feel real confident. And you're right about the kicker. We got the kicker right. Jim got the kicker right now for 3 years in a row. Now we've had great kicking. So
yeah, that was an awesome way. Getting Turner and having him. He was one of the most. If we're looking for underrated parts of the championship season, he would be a great one to just throw out there and say, look at the kicks he made against Ohio State. Look at all the kicks. He was making big kicks left and right down the stretch. Didn't miss any.
Yeah, that's a skill that the leader has to have, man, is identifying the right transfer and then having the ability to get them. So that's what hopefully Sharon will do, because Jim had it the last couple of years.
Yeah. Scar, what else? I've got a few other things. Let me read something that Alex Orji had to say. He was at the same spot where Mason Graham was, and he was asked about where he's made strides in his game this offseason. Here's what he said. I would say comfortability with my mechanics, kind of building that muscle memory, as well as comfortability with raising my voice sometimes, being that leader that all of us quarterbacks are. So that's it. Raising his voice and just working on getting more comfortable with the mechanics.
Yeah, Denny, it's a natural deal there when I'm just thinking back at my experience in college. You're a freshman, you just show up, you keep your mouth shut. A sophomore, there's guys that are there and you're just a young guy, and then you get to be on special teams maybe as a junior. He was a backup he's got 2 years left, right? After this? Or whatever. Anyway, he's now, everything changes. Those guys are graduating. You see it, that first couple workouts in the weight room in February, that's when you start to see that, hey man, those dudes are gone. And you see guys stepping up with they're motivating, and it ends up being, you got to be a part of it. So it's a natural progression. Coaches probably talk to him about it, be a little more vocal at times, talk to our offense in the huddle. Let's go get them, whatever it is you got, it's not a bunch of rah-rah stuff. You don't have to be over the edge, and it's not, but apparently that was one of the things that they felt he needed to step up on, and he's feeling confident with it. And yeah, his he's getting so much more reps in practice. If he is the number one guy, or if they're rotating, I don't know, but your confidence level just goes up because you're running with the first group. You're throwing all these passes and he's getting more reps. So yeah, the confidence is going to be up, and the vocal. I had it with certain players too, Danny. I got my linebackers. He's my best linebacker, and he's got to communicate, but he just doesn't. It's not natural for him. So it's hard for some kids. They don't come with the verbal confidence.
Yeah, Orji is a redshirt junior, so he could be the starter for the next 3 years. He talked about his throwing program, the practices, all the different things. They really honed in on it, so they didn't throw too much. Sounds like they like the setup and where they're at. Lifting on the odd days, throwing 2 times a week. Getting on the same page with the receivers and all of that. He had some really nice things to say about the transfer that came up from the diminutive transfer. What's his name? CJ Charleston. Is that it? That's it. CJ Charleston, talked about him. He said some nice things about some of those DBs as well that were transfers in. The 2 things about Orji that I've liked about him, just listening to him. One, he was discussing the experience he got being behind JJ, and he was just like so wide-eyed and saying, look, it's everything that JJ did. And he said, but even more than learning and being on the headset and communicating with JJ and seeing how he goes through everything, it was actually going against the number 1 defense for the last 2 years. And, as a scout guy, he was going against that best defense. And he knew that when he made a play, the confidence that he got. He was asked about some of the stuff that he's learned here in the offseason. And he just mentioned, the first thing that he mentioned, one of the first things, I don't know if it was exactly the first thing, was protecting the ball. And he said he took it, here he was last year coming in for an undefeated team, coming in for a guy that was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft and JJ McCarthy. And that responsibility of not turning over the ball, he said that's ingrained in him. So it's just nice to hear those kind of things in the offseason. He's, at this point, you can just hear all the things that you like that he's saying. And I like everything that he's saying.
It's a product of a great culture and a great system, Denny. I was that one young guy. I watched Robert Thompson and Mike Lemeron and these guys who were above me, Ben Needham. These guys were fourth year senior when I was a young freshman. And I'm just watching how these guys act, how they behave, how they practice. And it just trickles down. And guys, years later, they're following me the same way. So he had a great example to watch, to see the way, humble JJ was. And so, yeah, he had, there's no, and that's good. But that stuff is instilled. Those things are culturally instilled by Harbaugh and Sharon Moore. It isn't just normally happen. You got to instill that kind of behavior.
Good stuff. I've got more, Scar. I know you've got a few things there. Over the last 2 days, I've been watching SEC Media Days, and the ESPN, they've got the rights, so they do it differently than the Big Ten Network. But so they show a lot of you see a lot. I've seen a little bit too much of Heather Dinich, but I see all of them up there, talking about how great the SEC is, but. The thing that I wasn't anticipating, but if you would have asked me, I think I would have told you that, I think he'll do a good job, is Nick Saban as a commentator. Nick Saban, we've seen him before on the desk, like before a championship game when Alabama wasn't in it and things like that. But he is great. He's great as a TV analyst for ESPN talking about football. I like watching.
Danny, there's no question, man. I was just talking about this with my buddy. He's going to be on that panel with 4 other guys, right, on the pregame show, whatever, 3-4 other guys. Yeah. In my opinion, they should just let Saban talk, ask, those other guys should just keep their mouth shut, maybe talk once or twice throughout. Saban will bring so much wisdom and insight to scheming and recruiting and game plan and delegation and motivation and playing at these different stadiums. I mean, this guy is, I will, just like I taped Urban Meyer every Saturday, man. I'm not listening to some of them other clowns, but I am listening to what Urban Meyer says on his pregame show on Fox. I love it because it's a totally different perspective. You're getting good information. This guy lived it, man. He coached it. And so it's a whole nother world for listen, there's a difference between listening to him and Matt Leinart for me. Okay. And there's a difference between listening to Saban or Herb Street. So I'm going to listen to Saban all day long, man. I'm fired up for that. I totally get it.
Yeah, he's good. You don't know. Sometimes you feel like guys that come in, maybe they rely on just where they've been. You can already tell that he's putting in the work. And I mean, he knows the SEC from front to back and all of that. The thing that is really nice also by watching him is that you mentioned Urban Meyer. A lot of Michigan fans just break out. Not you. You said you respected him, but just out of hand. They're not going to. Oh, I hate this. Forget this guy. They'll even turn the channel when he's on there. They hate him. They don't want to hear anything he's saying. The thing about Saban, Michigan sending him into retirement and beating him, that's a nice feather in their cap that they'll always have. But Saban is not going anywhere. He'll be number one in TV. You can see that arrow just pointing up.
Yeah, Denny, what I like about Urban Meyer, he gets on the chalkboard. When it comes time to telestrating and chalkboard, there's no faking it there. You can't just be some guy on the panel. Now you got to be up there and explain things. And so when Urban Meyer gets up there and he talks scheme and adjustments and all the things that are going on with the play, that's what I'm listening for. And Saban will do the same thing. Saban will get up there and, why did this play work and why did it not? And why was it stopped? And what are you thinking there? And all that stuff like, that last play to win the championship, man, we call timeout, they call timeout, and the play is decided, because all those little things.
Yeah, the only thing, if I could adjust something on both of those guys, so far I haven't seen any of this from Saban, like talking about Alabama, saying we or anything like that. We know where he just coached everything, so you understand that part. But, as an analyst, if as a fan, maybe you want to get involved in some of that, like, oh, the hell with him and everything else. And like I just said with Urban Meyer, but that's the thing that will tick Michigan fans off when he can't say Michigan. He's talking about the team up north. It's like, if he could just make a few adjustments on that, we understand where his loyalties lie. We're not expecting him. But when you're not on the team anymore, I don't like to hear him talk about, well, when we bring in the team up north, like you're not on the Ohio State payroll anymore. But that's just a small thing, and
I get that, but he does have knowledge, and that's what I'm listening for.
I'm not discounting that.
Denny, the thing going on with Georgia, I thought this was interesting. These guys are all making this big money now. NIL, everybody's getting paid. Well, guess what? Georgia, they fine their guys. So if you do something stupid on campus, you get a speeding ticket. They're fining the players. You got money from NIL. Well, guess what? You just embarrassed Georgia. You embarrassed us up by doing stupid things. So they're giving them a financial fine for doing dumb things, getting tickets, speeding, whatever. I thought that was interesting, and I totally understand it, and I agree with it.
Yeah, you would think that when a collective bargaining agreement comes in, like with the NFL, when you do something, you're getting all those fines, and Georgia putting that in. I mean, that's big league, that's NFL stuff already. Writing that in contracts in an NIL deal. I'll tell you this: if Georgia came calling and said, "Hey, we want you to work the Bulldog podcast, but we don't have any money, but you get all of our fine money from all the guys from the NIL," so I'll take it. I'd be a millionaire. I mean, those guys every other day are getting put in jail or getting pulled over for reckless driving or something.
Yeah, Danny, I'm going to comment on what Mark is saying here about protecting the football. Also, Alex Orji talked about protecting the football. Danny, that is the number one thing Bo talked about. It's the number one thing I talked about as a coach. You can play the best defense. You can run the ball, catch the ball, block, tackle, and do everything right. If you put the ball on the ground, forget it. So securing the football is always number one on your priorities that you talk to your football team about. So Alex Orji obviously understands it because it's getting coached and they understand it. Nothing's changed.
Scar, I've got a friend of mine who just sent me a picture. He was just in Warren Woods Tower High School for work, and he has sent me a picture. Let's see if I can put it up on the screen. He wants to know what this stance is.
Yeah, that's a guy.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, it wasn't the best, but that was kind of the old outside linebacker 2-point stance. That's a good-looking dude right there back in the day, man.
Nice.
Playing for the state champions out of Warren Woods High School.
It looks like you're trying to warm up your hands at the camp. I had a friend, He's still a friend. Ken Kell does the radio for the Red Wings, and Ken loves to talk about old football cards. And he would say, they'd have the punter, got his leg up in the air, the quarterback, they'd have him going like this. And that's kind of what you look like there, Scar. You're like, and that's what they do with the offensive line. They have them look like players and like they're attacking.
They got the quarterbacks jumping, get the ball in one arm and they're jumping it.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
That was, I don't know. That was a poor decision. I've actually thought about that over the years. That stance was kind of weak.
Well, I don't know. That looked pretty good for me. All right. So
what else, Denny? I'll tell you another thing that's going on that people aren't talking about.
All right,
again, it's just Fresno State. Well, guess what? Their coach just resigned for health reasons, supposedly. But Denny, this is what coaches do in the high school level. They do it. I've seen it in the college level. This is what you do if you want to get your guy in as your replacement. You wait till the very last minute before the season starts, and then you resign or retire. And they don't have a chance to put together a interview process, a search committee. You got it. They've already went through spring ball, and now Fresno State will have to hire one of their assistants. So high school coaches do that to make sure that the administration hires one of their guys. I think this could be some of that in play with Tedford wanting to get his guy. So, is that an advantage, disadvantage for Michigan? It's different. There's a change there, but it could have been in the works the whole time.
Yeah, I think that. What was I going to say about that? Oh, Tedford, he's had heart issues in the past, which he had to retire from, and then he missed the bowl game last year. So maybe the timing was, get it so you could get your guy that was a Fresno State, and you could pick your guy. Maybe that had something to do with it. But what surprised me is that Tedford is 62 years old, and Bo was 60 when he retired. You think, Bo was probably 65, 70 years old, retired, relatively young at 60 years old, the same age Jim Harbaugh is right now. Bo retired. Of course, he had a few other things that he would do, but he retired at head coach's Michigan at 60 years old.
Yeah, it's a grind, man. It's a high pressure grind. How about Nebraska getting grass, Denny?
Oh, they legalized marijuana there.
There's a lot into this decision. You say, well, okay, what the heck does Nebraska getting grass, natural grass? They're going to get it, I guess, next year. Okay, not this year. So what is that? What's the impact of that? What does it mean? Is it irrelevant? No, I think it matters. Okay, about 20 some years ago, natural grass was a big recruiting tool that guys were using. In fact, they were using it. I think Michigan, we had all the trouble with our mud field and all that because it was Michigan Stadium's built over a river, blah, 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 whatever. That's why they had trouble with the natural grass. But anyway, Nebraska's getting it. Michigan State will always have grass as long as we have turf. I think it's a good strategy. It's different. Okay, I think it matters. I think grass matters. If I'm Nebraska, I think it's a good decision. You got Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Washington, all these good football teams. They play on turf, but they have new technology. I was reading about their decision, some of the technology in grass.
What are they saying, Scar? That is better?
Well, from an injury standpoint, it's huge.
It is? Okay.
And that's one of the things they were using in the recruiting pitch is that, you're not going to – you play on the turf I played on, you get hit twice, man. You get hit and then you fall on the ground, you get hit again. That stuff was just like, concrete with a little cheap – it's better now. It's a lot better now than –
concrete.
Okay. Anyway, you have a collision on grass, there's a little bit of give, on the grass. So I think it can be a positive factor when it comes to recruiting, playing on grass. So Nebraska is going to get it done. And I think it can also help you if you're an inferior team, you might not get the athletes, it doesn't hurt you to play on a wet, sloppy field playing Ohio State. or Oregon, who's got all these 4 or 5 star kids, and you're playing on a wet, sloppy field. If it's a rainy game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's things in that decision that I think are relevant and worthy of discussing.
Yeah, and I don't know, the technology's changed, but I don't know how deep Michigan would have to dig to if they ever wanted to go to grass. I know some of those stadiums, they slide the whole thing in, slide it out. I don't think, Michigan, I think would have to fly it in. That sounds crazy. It does remind me of when Michigan played TCU, they were playing at the Cardinals Stadium, right? And right off the bat, you could tell Donovan Edwards was having issues with the field turf. And then I think they played on that same turf in the Super Bowl. Was it a month later or something like that? And they were sliding around a little bit there too. I was like,
it's just different. It's a different deal. And I think, like anything, you're going to be better at what you do on a regular basis. So it's a factor. And Nebraska's doing it and they've got their reasons.
There you go. What else are you looking at when it comes down to Michigan?
How about Jeremiah Smith, Danny? Did you see the rumor out there how much money the Buckeyes are paying this kid?
Well, for those that don't know, Jeremiah Smith was the #1 overall player in at any position in recruiting last year, and he did go to Ohio State. So what are you saying about him?
Well, there was a friend of mine, good source. He's piped into what's going on with Ohio State and some of their stuff. He said they 750 in the NIL, and then these other packages through the collective, blah, 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 blah. Brand new Durango. He said altogether, the estimate was that he's getting about $2.5 million. $2.5 million for this kid out of the receiver, Randy Moss type receiver that we're going to have to deal with, who's playing in Columbus. So I thought that was of interest. A lot of money paying an 18-year-old kid. But Urban Meyer called him a freak. He said he was a LeBron James type athlete.
Who else was on that spring game? Because they said this guy's like, and no, it was I'm sorry, it wasn't Urban Meyer because I told you that before the show. It was Brady
Quinn.
Brady Quinn, who said that he doesn't like to. I think he said they didn't like making comparisons like that, but he called him LeBron James, and he had another comparison too, like something like the craziest thing ever. So yeah, I mean they feel like this guy's going to be the greatest thing ever.
Anyway, that was a figure. I heard $2.5 million for that's the kind of money this kid's going to be getting. I just thought that was of interest.
It is of interest. I remember when Dante Moore initially went to Oregon, I got a text from somebody who said that he's getting $2.5 million from Oregon, plus they're hooking up his family with jobs, and they didn't know all the specifics there. Well, that's what Michigan thought that they had to meet. That's where they thought that they had to go. They thought they had to go over $2.5 million for Dante Moore. Well, he ended up going to UCLA. So now you could say, well, those aren't hard and fast numbers, but that's what Michigan thought, and that was somebody that was close enough to, Jim Harbaugh, and that's what Michigan thought that they had to beat. So it was even more, and you could easily make it 3.5 when you're starting to talk about getting those jobs. So yeah, the quarterbacks, the kid at Tennessee, 6 or 7 million, played in the bowl game. Everybody excited about him. I think it's 6 or 7 or 8 million. They were talking
Danny, when I look at paying a freshman, there's a freshman offensive lineman. I don't think so. You go to Michigan, you're playing offensive line. You're not playing early. Quarterback, you're not playing early. Dante Moore, UCLA paid him all that money to sit on the bench. The quarterback ain't ready as a freshman. But receiver is more than any position a guy that is going to be able to contribute early because of that type of position. It's you run your routes. You're a big, tall, fast, athletic kid. There's not as much of a learning curve there.
Now, Michigan's got Carter Smith, who's the player of the year in Florida, committed, and then they got Brady Hart for 26, 25, Carter Smith. I wonder with the very, very top guys, the 5 stars that are getting $5 million or more, I'm guessing, that if Michigan's approach is, let's wait, look at the transfer portal when it comes down to these guys, You get another year to look at it, maybe 2, even 3 years. And then the money is going to be, you're going to have a better idea about where they're at rather than, throwing $5 million at a kid that's, almost a consensus rated, top 5 player. I wonder if they're going that route. And like all those guys, I mean, they get the ratings, they get the rankings. It means 7 figures, it looks like. And, as Michigan's approach, let's go a little bit below that, and then we'll wait around, and we can always circle back and come in with.
I don't know, Denny. I'd like to know the answer to that question. How did Michigan step up to that discussion with Jeremiah Smith? What did we bring to the table? What did we throw on the table? So I don't know. I'd like to know that. It'd be great to know that.
I think when they were like, Smith was like $2.5 million, they were like, "Oh, we lost you." I don't know what that. You could tell that they're not going to get one of the top 10 guys that are going to command, $3, $4, $5 million. They're just not going to get one of those guys. They're going to, and I don't have any criticism right now. Sharon Moore's has done a better than nice job. He's, they've got their plan. Everything looks like it's run, until there's reason to complain about it. I'm not going to, but I'm pretty sure that they're playing the old, they're doing at least a little bit of transformational, not transactional, when it comes down to the multi-million dollars of giving guys money up.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what they get. I wonder what a guy like the kid we got from Louisiana got. What did we have to give him to beat out Georgia and and LSU for? I don't know. What did we stepped up with, Denny?
Well, I think
two places got money. Georgia's got money.
Well, yeah, you're not getting guys that when they got the defensive end Holly, who was, Georgia in Michigan, and there was another NIL school in there. I think it was Miami or Texas A&M. Michigan wasn't getting them P Maximus on, hey, we're just Michigan. They're playing the game. They might not be just playing it like everyone else, where they're coming with millions of dollars for the top guys, but they're playing it. So I think this is an outdated position for Michigan fans, saying that, we're not stooping to that level. Or no, Michigan is they're paying up. They're promising money. They're giving up front money. The thing is, Scar, is that it's a shame on the NCAA, because when all of those antitrust things came out and everything, they just said, we're not going to be pursuing anything in this regard, something like that in their statement. Their statement should have said, you can pay upfront money. They should have just declared that. Instead, there was still a gray area where some people were like, hey, well, is this illegal? But then they're saying that they're just not going to pursue it. That still sounds like it's illegal. If you look at if we have a handbook or a rule book, you're not supposed to be promising money, but they know they're going to lose it. So now they're just going to look the other way. That whole thing, I mean, NCAA, some of it, I mean, they get criticized rightfully on almost everything they do. That's another stupid thing that they've done. And we don't even know what you're supposed to do there.
Yeah. Anyway, all of my sources have told me that Michigan is every bit in the game, providing our coaches what they need to compete and recruit kids. I was told that when Jim was the head coach, but the narrative is otherwise. Maybe that was a decision Jim made in terms of how far to go. But I do not believe for one second, Danny, that old Dusty May is going to build that program without a wallet. The guys he's brought in, he brought players in, man. That kid from Yale, the kid from Florida Atlantic. I mean, these guys, people wanted these dudes. So if they're going to give him the finances to compete, they're going to give Sharon Moore the same thing. So I think.
Well, there was a distinction before. It looked like, and this was without me exactly knowing what's going on, but this is exactly how it looked. When Michigan last year, when they were able to get the transfer from Tennessee, you could tell that was an NIL deal, that he was getting some money. And you could tell Michigan's had 19 transfers over the last 2 years. Michigan's paying for transfers. I think their distinction is that they weren't paying for recruits. But I do think that they're doing that now. That's what it looks like. I don't think that they're wanting to take their whole bankroll and throw it at 5 stars. I do think that they're strategically going about that. But, It was always part strategy. I know a lot of people are like, no, Michigan. Part of it was strategic. I don't know exactly if they were sitting around. I know Harbaugh made it sound like that, they weren't. It was a transformational over transactional game. But as part of it was strategic too.
Yeah, but Danny, there's a big difference between, you talk about a big time offensive lineman coming to Michigan. He ain't playing for 3-4 years. There's competition there. He's got a lot of work. The weight room is a bigger factor there. But again, a receiver and some other guys can play a lot earlier. So, how much you give an offensive lineman who's going to need 3 years in that weight room, because you look at the guys we're going to start this year, our offensive linemen. I mean, they've been all of them been sitting there paying their dues. And that's going to be probably the future of Michigan football offensive line, is they're going to have to wait around and pay their dues like back in my day.
I think this is a good question from Ferris. Andrew Babaloa is being offered. How much do you think? Now, Babaloa, there was like the very top guys, the kid from Vegas, Uni, I think his name was, a 5-star, one of the top 10 players. The kid Sanders, who went to the same high school as Jaden Davis. Those guys are getting $1 million at least. Babaloa, from Rivals rankings, he was down like 75. Now he has moved up, and I think other sites have him higher. So, but the interesting thing about him, he really does seem like, well, I don't want to say seems like, he's interested on the academic side. So there's some different calculus going on when it involves Babaloa. Sure, the money's going to be there, but he's got Michigan and Stanford that he's weighing. Maybe one of these schools come in and just say, hey, forget that school. Here's $3 million. And then Babaloa's like, okay.
Yeah, but you look at this kid, he's a 5-star offensive lineman compared to Jeremiah Smith, 5-star receiver. Again, Babaloa's not going to play for a couple of years.
Right.
I don't give a dang how good he is. You got to compete against some guys that have been in the weight room for a couple of years, and he's got a lot. It's a whole different. Them front 7 positions are a whole lot tougher to get in than receiver. So anyway, as far as how much, my guess for him, I'm going to guess that he would be offered probably about $500,000.
Nice.
Maybe. I mean, are they going to give that kid $1 million to sign his name and sit there for 3 years, 2-3 years? I don't know.
I don't think so. That sounds too much for me, but I don't know. I'm not sitting there looking at the money. I don't know. I know they have a GM. They've got about 5 different people that they've hired to come up with those type of numbers and that kind of strategy. So it's not like they're just sitting around, playing, pinochle here in the summer. They're thinking about how much money and how they're doling it out. So, but I wouldn't think it would be that much.
Yeah, Danny, one of my last thoughts was which teams in the Big Ten are going to benefit from the change of no divisions? And I basically did the math on it. Every team that was in the Big Ten East, every single team in the Big Ten East is going to benefit. Rutgers, no more playing Michigan and Ohio State. Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan State's going to benefit big time. No more Ohio State. Penn State, no more Michigan. Okay. So basically, everybody's going to benefit except Michigan and Ohio State because we got to play each other. So that's how I did the math. Michigan and Ohio State are the only teams in the Big Ten Conference that are not benefiting from the change in divisions. Now, the Western Conference is a whole different deal. Indiana had it tough that they had to play, in that side on the East. But the thing that they got that was always an advantage was they played Purdue. They always had Purdue every year. That's why Purdue had the best schedule of anybody in the Big Ten the last 10 years. They played in the western side of the division, which was easier, and then they crossed over every year with Indiana. So that's why that program was a lot easier to build. So I just want to point that out. Again, Michigan, Ohio State got the toughest deal there, and kind of pisses me off that Michigan State doesn't play Ohio State every year. I want them down, Denny. I don't keep that a secret. I don't want them building I want John Smith fired in 4 years.
No, you have not kept that a secret. You've put that out there. You're right about all that. So Michigan has a lot, and Ohio State, they've got a lot of other advantages. If there were only 4 teams, I think it might burn you a little bit more, but now that there's a 12-team playoff and you can get more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 teams from your conference, maybe in this college football playoff, at least multiple selections. It's more like the NFL. Scar, you go out there, if the Lions go 12-5 this year, that's a pretty good season, so you can lose some ball games. Now you can't lose 5 games when you have a 12-game slate, but you can lose a couple.
Yeah. So anyway, Danny, 2 weeks from today, man, I'm just I'm thinking back, and it's a mental deal, getting your mind ready, because the grind begins. School and football, and it's a long grind. So they got to get their mind right, and hopefully playing well into January.
That's the goal. That's great, Scar. You brought it today. We appreciate that. You do every week. Nice job today. We look forward to talking with you next week to see what you come up with.
Yeah, Danny, looking forward to Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. Are you kidding me? Listen, Corso, I love old Coach Corso. He recruited me back in the day, but I want to listen to Saban, man. Saban and Urban Meyer, bring the wisdom, man. Bring the stories and the adjustments and the scheme and explain it. Figure out what the heck these guys are doing with guys that have coached.
Jim Scarcelli bringing the wisdom today. Smash that like button. We love those 5-star reviews on the podcast. Scar, take care.
Go Blue, Big D.
There he is. Yeah, smash it, like Andre says.